First tonight, a hospital which was severely criticised for its maternity care faces anxious parents and promises a better service.
At a packed public meeting last night, managers from the hospital trust did their best to reassure people the unit is safe. It comes just 2 weeks after a damning report by the Care Quality Commission. Some expectant mothers say they've lost all confidence. In a moment, what the Chief Executive has to say. But first, this report from Joe Black.
This is the issue that refuses to go away. 2 years ago, at a meeting into maternity services in Milton Keynes, only 5 people turned up. Last night, hospital managers faced a packed public gallery with 2 high-profile baby deaths and so much at stake. People here want changes, they want assurances, and they want them quickly.
2 years ago, we had a meeting where we talked about inadequate maternity services. Promises were made about numbers of midwives. Those promises have not been fulfilled. So here we are again. I just hope desperately that in 2 years' time I'm not back here again in the same meeting, because in those intervening months, babies will die.
2 weeks ago, the Care Quality Commission released a report which said the hospital needed to accelerate improvements and said temporary measures to provide enough midwife cover were not sustainable. Money is not an issue here. The hospital has had an extra £500,000 from the PCT to help overcome the midwife shortage. And last night it spoke of its efforts to recruit, citing Scotland as one possible answer, where there's an apparent surplus.
It's my second pregnancy. My first one was a stillbirth. They keep saying things are safe, but from my experience it wasn't. And I'm still very nervous about going in again.
I'm still feeling fairly confident about going in there because my experience so far has been positive.
The meeting also decided to create a panel made up of counsellors and members of the public to assess how the unit is coping. The team will report back to the council regularly. This could help mothers like Julia Jeans, women who have used the unit before and may want more children. Julia gave birth to Isabel 6 months ago in Milton Keynes. She said the staff did a tremendous job on a ward which is clearly struggling.
When I went down to the ward, virtually every bed seemed to be occupied all the time. The staff said that they were unable to assist with things because they were so busy. They were just concentrating on, was your baby feeding okay? And they were so busy that they struggled to discharge you. I mean, it took 12 hours from when I asked to be discharged for me to be discharged.
Milton Keynes is one of the fastest growing areas in the UK. The expectation here is that the maternity services keep up, and while the promises have been made, many here remain to be convinced. Joe Black, BBC Look East.
Well, late this afternoon I spoke to Jill Rodney, the Chief Executive at the hospital, and I asked about the reaction at the hospital to the criticism from the CQC, the Care Quality Commission, and to the deaths of the 2 babies.
Obviously, any baby death is an absolute tragedy for the families involved and also for our staff as well, who strive to provide high-quality care at all times.
You've been in post, I think, for 8 or 9 years, since 2001, and yet you have a maternity unit which has been severely criticised, that hasn't had enough staff in it, where leadership has been criticised as well. Do you look at that and think that maybe you should stand down?
I have obviously analysed exactly what that means for me and what the criticisms are on a personal level, but I also believe I'm the right person to drive this forward and to make sure that we address those concerns around staffing.
But you must have walked around the hospital, walked around the maternity unit over the last 8 or 9 years and seen that it is a struggle for the staff that you have to cope. Why haven't you moved sooner to get more midwives in place?
I spend a lot of my time actually walking the whole patch, not just the maternity unit. And I think if we look at where we have peaks in demand, then staff can be stressed. But I think if we also look at what the CQC said, is that pressure on staff is relieved, morale is higher, and certainly people don't feel that there's the same pressure on those beds. So we are making inroads, we are recruiting more midwives, and we do have high quality staff who strive to deliver absolutely the highest quality of care to the mothers who deliver here.
If I go back to the Care Quality Commission, they say capacity is not just about numbers of beds and midwives, it's about making sure that potential emergency situations are planned for and staff are equipped to deal with any circumstances that could arise. That again is about leadership and about planning, isn't it? Do you believe that you have the right managers and the right leaders in place?
I do. We have a very strong leadership team within the unit.
Well, how come they've not got this sorted?
How do we plan ahead?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how come they haven't got this sorted out in the past if they're so good?
We have a new leadership team in place, and I think what we have is an increase in number of people who work here, who choose to give birth here as well, and actually it's on an hour-to-hour basis. We're having to make those decisions, and we need to formalise them and make sure people do know what to do, and I'm confident that we have those systems in place.
What would you say to anybody who is expecting to have a baby in the next couple of months and is coming to your hospital to reassure them?
I would say that our service is safe. The CQC have confirmed that our service is safe, and that if they have any concerns, they should come in, see the unit, see our midwives, see their consultants, and talk to us about their particular concerns we have, and let us show them how safe and how caring their care will be when they come into Milton Keynes.
And if things don't get better over the next year, as far as any reports are concerned, would you then resign?
Things will get better over the next year. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And whilst we continue to provide safe care, I'll be doing my utmost to make sure that we can recruit to those vacancies.
Jo Rodney, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The rail company First Capital Connect has been told by the government to improve its service soon or face remedial action. This afternoon in Parliament, MPs lined up to condemn the service, which has been beset with delays and cancellations for the last 3 months. Here's our political correspondent, Andrew Sinclair.
Susie, every day 150,000 passengers in this region travel to work with First Capital Connect on its services from Kings Lynn, Peterborough and Bedford. Those are some of the busiest and most overcrowded lines in the country. Now, half of them use the Thameslink service from Bedford, and that's the one that's been the focus of so much criticism. The company didn't employ enough drivers. It relied instead on staff working overtime. So when an overtime ban was introduced as part of a pay dispute, the service ground to a halt with hundreds of cancellations. The company was forced to bring in an emergency timetable, and even though the dispute has recently been settled, a combination of bad weather and other problems meant that last week there were still 135 cancellations. And that was the best performance since last May.
At Bedford Station this morning, everything seems to be running to time, but regular commuters from here have become battle-scarred.
When it runs smoothly, it's good, but there's been so many disturbances lately. Trains not being there when you want them, trains being delayed.
Always problems with overcrowding.
People have been furious.
This afternoon, MPs lined up to condemn the company.
People would wait an hour on platforms in my constituency for a train, on the platform that they'd been told the train was going to arrive on, and then as the train pulled in, the platform announcement would change, not giving them sufficient time to get over to the next platform, and the train went.
The current passenger information system is a manual one, it's user-unfriendly, and it does not function in real time.
I'm interested in my commuters getting the service that they've paid for and getting to work on time, and ultimately that's what they want.
The opposition parties accuse the government of bluster and inaction and not caring about the plight of commuters. Some Labour MPs had their own solution.
The logical answer is to take back the franchise and take it in-house and start to run it as a publicly run, publicly accountable public service.
He's not alone. Nearly 5,500 people have signed a petition on the Downing Street website calling for the company to lose its franchise. And that may yet happen.
Passengers have been let down badly.
The Transport Minister giving his sternest warning yet.
Unless things improve radically, the government will take necessary, robust and rapid steps to ensure that passengers receive the standard of service they deserve.
First Capital Connect said today that new drivers are being recruited and new trains are coming into service with engineers riding on them in case they break down. But will that be enough to save its franchise?
Well, the East Coast Main Line is already back in public ownership. National Express East Anglia are losing their franchise early. Now First Capital Connect is in the firing line. There is a lot of unhappiness with the region's rail services at the moment from both passengers and government. Susie.
Andrew, thank you very much. Still to come on